All right, well, our first guest on the show this week is an author, educator, and speaker who focuses on one of the most important issues of our time, corporate social responsibility, also known as CSR. The term thought leader, I think, is too often used, but in this case, it fits Wayne Visser, PhD, to a T. As Fast Company magazine said, anyone interested in CSR will eventually come across Wayne Visser. We interviewed him in the recent Quality Digest Daily article, Discovering the S in CSR, and his latest book, Sustainable Frontiers, is out now. So it's our pleasure to welcome Wayne Visser to our show. Greetings, Wayne.
Hi, good to be on your show.
How are you today?
I'm very good. I'm calling in from South Africa, so enjoying some sunshine in between the work.
Well, thank you for doing that, Wayne. We really appreciate you joining us at this off hour. Well, let's start. Let me ask you about CSR, corporate social responsibility. It's a big concept, and there's certainly a lot of inputs and outputs for an organization to consider. In your opinion, how can those who maybe are unfamiliar with CSR begin to get started with it?
Well, you know, it's a concept that has changed a lot over time, and so even those who think that they may be familiar with it really need to get up to speed. And one thing I would say is a good starting point is for people to just consult the ISO 26000 Global Standard on Social Responsibility. And that sets out 7 core subjects that relate now to CSR and gives a lot of guidance to companies, even though it's a non-certifiable standard. But let me say this, you know, it can also be overcomplicated. And really what we're seeing today with CSR is that it's become quite a simple concept, which is your company making a positive impact in the world or not? Is the planet and the society better off for your company existing or not? And quite simply, I often summarize that by saying you've got to look at 4 dimensions, no matter what label you use, whether it's CSR or sustainability or corporate citizenship. You look at 4 things. Are you creating value in an inclusive way in society? Are you having good governance, which relates to your theme around whistleblowing, as well as good leadership and ethics and transparency? Are you contributing to society in a way that is inclusive to your stakeholders? And are you having a positive, or at least a small negative impact on the environmental integrity, on the resources on which we're dependent? So I think without overcomplicating it, it's really today about our companies using their business, not the money that they make and might have spare for charity or philanthropy, but are they using their business, the core products and services and processes that they have to make a positive impact on society and to solve some of the most difficult challenges that we have in the world today?
Well, you know, you talk about that, and you talk about that from the perspective of you know, what your impact is, and measuring that is really important, I think, because you know, we know, I mean, business leaders that read Quality Digest, certainly many of them come from a financial background. And you know, I think, I mean, CSR will probably gain traction if the gains and the savings can be realized, and the benefits too, but a lot of those benefits are, I guess, what you would call soft benefits. So how can a financial leader calculate those benefits?
Well, here again, we've seen a lot of progress over the last decade or so, and companies really starting to put the numbers to those benefits. The so-called business case for CSR or sustainability is much stronger today than it was a decade or 2 ago. And let me give you some concrete examples just to show that if companies think of this not as an expense, but as an investment, then actually they can quantify the benefits, and those benefits are positive. So let's take General Electric as an example, GE. When Jeff Immelt came in and took over from Jack Welch, he really changed the strategic thrust of that company, and he bet the future in 2 areas. One was health technology, and the other one was environmental or clean technology. And if you look at their Eco-Imagination program, they have invested in R&D around those technologies roughly $12 billion. So a big investment, and you might be saying, the shareholders might be saying, where's the payback? And in fact, they've quantified that payback. And since its launch, they've had revenues related to eco-imagination of 160 billion. So a factor of more than 10 times. And we can take other examples. If you look at Unilever with their sustainable living plan, again, the key point here is that they made a strategic commitment to sustainability. In their case, it was to double in size, halve their environmental footprint, help 1 billion people out of poverty through their products, and go 100% sustainable on their agricultural products, certified. Well, they've been tracking their results as well, and they've already saved on reductions in energy, water, materials, and waste, over 300 million euros. So there really is a strong business case to be had. And although it's true that some of the benefits are intangibles, like, for example, improved relations with stakeholders or improved brand and reputation or reduced risk, in actual fact, we've got enough now that we can measure. If you look at Interface Floor, the carpet manufacturer in the US, when they can show that since 1996, when they came up with their Mission Zero, their waste is down 91%. Their carbon emissions are down 73%. Their water is down 86%. Those are all things that you can measure and that translate into cost savings. And I really think that we're at the stage now where we're experimenting with different ways to measure. So we're starting to see methodologies like social return on investment. There's a Mexican company called Los Alamos National Laboratory, and they start to put a figure to this. So they've got $20 million of social capital that they've created, and they've got $34.5 million of social return of investment through their volunteer hours that they've put in. And then you get progressive companies like Puma, who are starting to say, well, we've got to quantify the impacts that we're having on the environment. So a conventional cotton T-shirt of Puma, they've worked out the environmental cost of that are roughly 17% of the retail value. Now that enables them to innovate on their product, and they came up with a biodegradable cotton T-shirt, and they've brought down the environmental cost of that to 12%. So these things really are quantifiable, and you get now big companies like KPMG, one of the big 4 accounting firms in the world, coming up with these methodologies. They've got something called true earnings, where they start with the revenue, cost, and earnings as per normal, but then they financially quantify what's the economic positive benefit through taxes and wages. And then they subtract the negative impacts of corruption. They add back the social impacts through healthcare infrastructure and education development, and they subtract through low wages and pollution. They add back through renewables and recycling, and they subtract through waste, carbon emissions, water, and use of materials, and they come up with a true earnings value. So this is really where it's at today. We're seeing improved measures, and I really think that this is certainly not an excuse. There are massive benefits to be had in this space now.
So Wayne, you mentioned some great case studies there, GE and Unilever, Puma. In your book, your new book, Sustainable Frontiers, you offer up case studies of the successful as well as some unsuccessful CSR efforts. So what are some of the commonalities? You talked about the commonalities of the successful ones. What are some of the commonalities of those that haven't been maybe so successful?
Well, let me take a few examples here to illustrate. The way to think about this is that the unsuccessful ones are ones that are stuck in outdated models or modes of CSR. And, you get some that got stuck in a defensive mode where it's all about compliance and risk management. You can look at a failed company like Enron or Lehman Brothers, where they had CSR initiatives. In fact, rather bizarrely, Lehman Brothers won a CSR award after it went bankrupt. They didn't make it strategic. And you can take many companies that are stuck in a charitable or a philanthropic mode. And then as Warren Buffett likes to say, it's only when the tide goes out that you know who's been swimming naked. And so as soon as times get tough, these are the companies that cut back on their so-called CSR spend. And then you get others that get stuck in what I call the promotional or the marketing approach, the PR approach. Here you look at BP changing their logo to Beyond Petroleum. You know, and it was a joke, right? Because in the year that they changed their logo, as Greenpeace reminded us, they spent more on the logo than they did on renewable energy. And the most they've ever spent on renewables is 4%, and that's been going down year on year. And then we have fiascos like the Gulf of Mexico spill, which, by the way, is probably going to cost them about $55 billion. And remember that they lost 50% of their value within 50 days of that happening. So talk about a negative business case when you get it wrong. So these are some of the elements of what goes wrong. If you get stuck in a defensive or a charitable or a marketing mindset to this, then you're going to go wrong. And rather what we need is a strategic or a transformational mindset. And two quick examples for that. I mean, strategic, you take Coca-Cola. They got caught out in the district of Kerala in India for stealing the water. That was the accusation of the community. It doesn't matter if it was true, that was the perception. And so now they align water as one of their major strategic issues for the company, and they committed the company to be water neutral globally. And they invest a lot in this issue. Or take a company like Patagonia. You know, when they realized that their biggest impact was cotton, because it's very chemical, water, and energy intensive, they committed to 100% organic cotton. They transformed that industry because they didn't even have enough organic cotton in America to supply them at that time. So that's one of the signs of the success, is you transform an industry. Secondly, they went fully transparent. So not only putting out a so-called sustainability report, they never did that. They put out what they call the Footprint Chronicles, which was measuring the impact of their products right across the life cycle and giving that information to customers so that when you buy a pair of organic jeans, you know how much water, waste, carbon was the impact of that product and how far it traveled to get to you. And finally, they question the idea that you have to be on a growth treadmill. So, you know, you see these bizarre ads from Patagonia now saying, don't buy this jacket. Because what they're saying is that we go for durability, we're about sustainability, and if you get bored of your jacket, bring it back and we'll swap it. But actually what you're buying into here is the best clothing, the best company, not the biggest. So I think these are some examples that show a transformational mindset, which is really what we need if we're going to get to what is effectively another industrial revolution. We won't get to 80 or 90% less carbon in the world without completely revolutionizing capitalism and the economy. And that's what COP21 is all about in a few weeks in Paris. So watch this space.
Well, Wayne, thank you for that. You know, a really great download here on CSR, the state of the CSR today. Thank you for joining us. Really honored to have you on the show. And we'll be talking to you in the future, I'm sure, about these topics.
And remember Wayne's book, Sustainable Frontiers.
Sustainable Frontiers. Yeah, check out Wayne's book too. Thank you, Wayne.